Hello and welcome to the final capsule. That's right, capsule of 2022. We got a little surprise. Normally we do this during our office hour streams, though that was yesterday. I got a surprise this afternoon, something I was not expecting, which was a letter from the chairman. So if you don't know what these capsules are, these are segments of my usual office hour streams, which happens on Thursdays, where we look over things like the monthly reports, the patch notes, or all of the kind of news and segments. I usually pull them out, little discussions, news segments, or points that I like to make for you to watch and enjoy. So hopefully you can get your own input. So as always, make sure that you're watching this, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and like the video if you enjoy this. Make sure you hit the little bell icon and make sure you set it to all notifications to know when these come out. And if you don't do that, YouTube may not actually ever tell you that a video comes out. It's weird. You'll get there and a video will come out and you won't see it for 3 weeks and something will pop up in your feed and be like, what, why? That's why you have to hit the little bell icon, because it's the only way it'll actually tell you, and they don't always do that anyways. But as you can see over here, chat is going up, so you know I'm doing this live on Twitch. Say hi, chat. They'll tell you that it's pre-recorded because that's just what they do. But without any further ado, let's look at the letter from the chairman for the last little update from Star Citizen for 2022. All right. So, letter from the chairman, 12/30/2022. Doesn't want to expand. There we go. Hello, everyone. As we close out from 2022, head into 2023, I wanted to take the time to thank everyone for being such an amazing, enthusiastic, and supportive community. The not-so-secret sauce of Cloud Imperium's ability to have the time and resources to build the universe of the detail, scale, and scope of Star Citizen is the community's full-throttle embrace of their ultimate goal of a fully connected and simulated science fiction universe that allows players to engage in first-person gameplay and adventures almost without boundaries. There is no other way Star Citizen could be built except for community-driven funding model. The investment both in time and money is just too expensive for a normal game publisher, especially a public one beholden to quarterly earnings reports and shareholders. That's what he's saying there is something I've been saying for a very long time, which is effectively Star Citizen is not a fundable model, and it's not a model that you would actually make money. CIG does not make money. I know you may sit here and go, but Paul, they made over $100 million. That is chump change to any company the size of CIG in like a public or even private investor held companies. They need that money a month because they don't just want money, they need all the money. CIG is effectively barely breaking even year to year to keep the lights on and keep everyone going. So that's a kind of it's a good point to bring out there. A great example of our ability to take this long-term view and invest in research and development that most projects don't have the time or ambition for is persistent entity streaming, PES, which creates true lasting persistence for the Star Citizen universe. If you leave some equipment in a remote cave, shoot down a bounty hunter over Daymar, manage to fend off some pirates around Yela, the results of your actions will persist. Items, debris, ships, even dead bodies. All will stay where they were left and still be there when you log off and return a week later, assuming other players haven't taken or cleaned up the results of your adventures. So, Pico in the middle of nowhere. It's a big Pico. To do this, the universe is big as Star Citizen, big and detailed as Star Citizen, to have this apply to everything, not just player-owned items. For an MMO with millions of players, this is a major technical accomplishment. I'm not aware of any large-scale MMO that has tried to deliver this level of persistence. PES is the headline feature for Star Citizen Alpha 3.18, and while we didn't manage to release to live before the end of 2022, it's currently in Wave 1 for PTU, Public Test Universe, the testbed wherein we harden patches with the community's help before we deem the patch stable enough for live release. And there are already lots of community videos and posts about emergent gameplay that is enabled by PES, especially when combined with other 3.18 features such as salvage and soft death, where the ship doesn't blow up into pieces, and instead becomes disabled, allowing players to survive a once fatal event, and attackers on board and attackers to board and potentially loot disabled ship. PS is an example of how your support has enabled Star Citizen to expand its boundaries and possibilities. But the community's contribution goes much further than funding Star Citizen's development, as contributing ideas, giving feedback, and testing the various updates we release are all part of the symbiotic relationship between Cloud Imperium and the Star Citizen community. There are plenty of features and content that I and the development team dream up, but there are equally many things that come from you, the community. The development of Star Citizen is a fusion of development... please don't say that, Chris. You get everyone to pitch their ideas now. Of development team and community playing it. Ideas that are passed back and forth, made better, released, tested, and iterated on. Some recent racetracks that debuted in 3.17.2 and now in 3.18 are the result of community finding interesting areas to race around, which in turn inspire developers to flesh them out and start to add time trial functionality to ship HUDs. This is just one example. There are too many others to list in detail, as the same dynamic happens with everything in Star Citizen. Your actions in the verse inspire the Star Citizen team to improve and push the boundaries even further. And what is even more exciting is that the community grows even larger every year. More and more people discover Star Citizen through their friends, online videos, or people streaming their gameplay. Hello. Are then intrigued to jump into the verse. I really hope this isn't your first video with Star Citizen, but if it is, hello. It's Siege Warson. My letter from the chairman in May this year, the essay from the chairman, yes, I mentioned just how strongly we started 2022 in terms of new players joining the verse. This trend has continued through the rest of the year, fueled by Invictus launch week, and then continued with the release of Alpha 3.17.2, which really should have been numbered as a full patch due to the number of features, content, and optimizations we put into it. Okay, thank you. That's from the man himself, all right? This has been mentioned multiple times, but I had a conversation with Morph about this, and Morph said, it's not really, shouldn't be really considered a full patch. And it's like, Chris Roberts says it would. So, anyways, I always knew this because, for those of you who don't know, CIG has done this a lot of times. They did this with 3.15 as of recently. The 3.16 itself, the patch 3.16, wasn't actually 3.16. It was 3.15 dot whatever, I think 1 or 2, but they just called it 3.16. That's what they do all the time when they release those, major patches. They just kind of put the name out there. So this is a good example of, like, we're likely to see 3.18, 3.19, and possibly even a 3.20 this year, but there won't really be full releases as we typically would think so. Because Star Citizen, the CIG doesn't even hold their own, standards for that, but... which should have been numbered as a full patch due to the number of features, content, and optimizations we put in it. Knowing that Alpha 3.18 was going to take extra time due to the complexity of PES, the biggest headline of 3.17.2 was the increase in server capacity from 50 players, I forgot that we only had 50 players, to over 100 players, which was enabled by the ongoing multi-threading and optimization work the engine and gameplay teams had been working on in the background. This enabled a more active and busier PU for players, and allowed for some truly spectacular player-driven events like 100-person fleet battles or ship meets. In November, we released Alpha 3.17.4, just in time for 2952 edition of IAE, which debuted 2 new flyable ships in the Drake Cutter and Corsair, as well as the RSI Galaxy, the large multi-role ship, which has been added to the ship production pipeline, and playable, nifty off-road vehicle, the Grey Cat Sports Terrain Vehicle, the STV. It's the Steve. We also added servers in Hong Kong for our exploding player base in the Asia Pacific. All of this combined with the return of Jump Town and our other dynamic events like Xenothreat and Ninetales Lockdown kept the verse more engaged and active than any year previously. And our most passionate players test 3.18 in PTU, and our developers take well-deserved break. I wanted to share with you some truly momentous stats from this year to illustrate that Star Citizen had the best year yet and crossed some historic milestones that demonstrate this game we all love is finally breaking into a larger gaming consciousness, with a success that is greater and faster than we anticipated. This year, over 1 million unique players logged into Star Citizen and played our game. They did so for more than 46 million hours. Our daily active users, DAU, this year, i.e. unique players logged in each day, has grown 50% over last year, and is double what we had in the end of 2019. This year, we are averaging over 240,000 monthly active users, which is 33% higher than the average monthly active users from last year, with highs of over 400,000 users during May of this year's Invictus launch week. For those of you who follow our funding tracker, doubtless know we've had already eclipsed all of last year's revenues by mid-November and have had our first 100 million plus year by a fair margin. You can also read more in-depth report of our 2021 financials here, but as great as 2021 was, which was remarkable for growing beyond the COVID bolstered revenues of 2020, we managed to grow 30% beyond 2021. Where does this all revenue go? Right back into development, as we've hired more than ever before and continue to build our Squadron 42 and Persistent Universe teams. It's no secret that our two games and our technology are among the most complex and complicated endeavors in gaming, and even tech industry. We're doing things that our engine and are truly we're doing things with our engine that are truly groundbreaking. It takes talent and time to achieve the ambitious goals we've set for ourselves. And even so, as we grow, we invest all that growth back into our teams through hiring and retaining critical talent. Now, this is something I would sit there and say, Chris, this is I feel like this is a pitch to he's keeping his word and treating us like investors. That's fluff. There's almost certainly Star Citizen is almost certainly not one of the most complicated things in all of tech. No, not at all. It's unique, and it's definitely more complex than a typical first-person shooter or typical MMO. But I wouldn't say it's the most complex thing of all time, as he's kind of couching it. That's all fluff. So, no, bad, Chris. And if this is the case, if you truly believe that's the case, then explain to us how it is, because it can't. That's just words. And it takes talent and time to achieve these ambitious goals we've set for ourselves. And even so, as we grow, we invest that growth back into our teams through hiring and retaining critical talent, then pay them more. A huge portion of our growing revenue has come exclusively from new players that have joined Star Citizen this year. In fact, this year, we witnessed truly explosive growth. Over 800,000 new accounts were created this year to follow or play our project. Our new players this year have almost doubled this year compared to last year, with over 500,000 new players joining during free flights, dynamic events, and throughout 2022. And as those new players this year, over 70% of them stayed around as paying players who purchased starter packs to get access to the Star Citizen Alpha to keep their adventures in the verse. So, according to, this is over 1 million? Yeah, over 1 million unique players in 2022 financial year. New accounts over 800,000. Yeah, it's hard to read the graph, but yeah. We had a lot more in 2016 than a dip down that goes back up. Whereas unique players kind of fluctuates. It's up and then down. Star Citizen World Tour and CitizenCon. Throughout 2022, members of our team had the opportunity to attend various Star Citizen events around the globe. We are grateful for the chance to connect with all of you at these events, especially those who are further from our offices. The past few years during the pandemic have reminded us of the importance and significance of in-person events, and there's nothing quite like the energy and excitement of Star Citizen. Seeing and experiencing your passion and support in person energizes us for the work ahead. We have always been inspired by the creativity and camaraderie at these events, and we believe they will continue to highlight our community for years to come. For those reasons and many more, I'm happy to share that we plan to continue this initiative in 2023. I'm sorry, Jake. I'm sorry, Tyler, Zylo. I'm sorry, Ulf, and all the community team, and for the new and Freya, the new community manager. I'm sorry ahead of time. I'm so sorry. Your sleep schedule's going to be ruined. Our community team is always interested in learning about upcoming events in your area, to be sure to share your events in Spectrum. And in the case you missed it, Sandy Roberts also recently announced that in-person CitizenCon will be returning in 2023 in Los Angeles. We're looking forward to seeing you all there for the day of celebrating the Star Citizen universe with fellow community members We'll share more information as soon as we have it, so stay tuned for more details of the event. I feel old being backer 29269. I am similar, so don't read the chat, Paul. Just keep reading this. In my last letter, we shared some early imagery of our new Manchester and Frankfurt offices that were previously under construction. I'm happy to report we have now moved into both offices, Frankfurt at the end of August and Manchester in mid-October. Having our staff together in the office makes a huge difference into our teamwork. We've struggled at times to hit our goals for 2022. While we always achieved incredible things at Cloud Imperium Games, I have personally seen a significant change in pace towards the end of the year, resulting from most of us being in the office, which we were finally able to achieve once our 2 new offices in Frankfurt and Manchester were ready to be occupied. The huge new offices in downtown Manchester were especially important as we had grown way beyond the capacity of old Winslow office during the pandemic, and so we could not properly return to office until we had extra space. Now that our teams have moved back in, we're especially eager to give y'all a tour of our new facilities. That's just me slipping it in. We plan to do just that in the coming months as we wrap up the final touches in the facilities. You can expect a video tour alongside the return of periodic studio tours for those looking to visit us in person, of course with limited capacity when available. We're also planning on opening our doors on a couple of fun in-house events in our concierge and subscribers. Stay tuned for more information in the new year. Alpha 318. Last week, we opened the gates and welcomed Wave 1 testers to check out the latest content and technologies in Star Citizen Alpha 318. This upcoming patch release marks a giant technical leap forward in Star Citizen's journey to deliver the uncompromising and near limitless universe we've all been dreaming of. Far from our typical quarterly patch, this release introduces fundamental changes to our entire backend, bringing in an all-new set of backend services, granting universal persistence and even mass migration of entire game state into the cloud, which is a tremendous undertaking and an accomplishment for our teams. Since hitting Wave 1, tens of thousands of you have dived into the experienced the long-awaited salvage profession, an entirely new economic and non-combat career path for pilots in the verse. The ability to salvage will allow pilots to retrieve valuable materials from target ships to sell them for profit. The new salvage profession is supported through the addition of new technology and tools, including a complete cargo refactor, giving cargo a physical representation in-game. Alpha 318 also includes the launch of the Drake Interplanetary Vulture, a new entry-level flyable salvage ship in the Drake lineup of vessels, perfect for pilots beginning their career in salvage alongside updated functionality so reclaimer pilots can finally utilize their behemoth of a ship. While Salvage, new racetracks, new POIs, and some other visual stimulating mechanics will take the spotlight, the largest change in our universe comes from the powerful work under the hood with persistent entity streaming, PES. With this new tech, all physical objects moved or placed by players will dynamically be tracked on server where they were moved to and remain there in their new locations. PES represents the largest technical update in the game's history and is a critical addition in laying the foundation for future technology and full in-game persistence that will unlock a new level of immersion in the verse. As we move towards making 318 stable enough to release the live services, I'd like to give a special shout out to everyone who's been making testing 318 so far on the public servers, especially those from our dedicated Evocati group. We put many hard hours into the patch was in its roughest and most frustrating state. Thanks to your efforts, we've been able to iterate in real time and implement improvements and fixes quicker than ever. All right, so this is where we get into the going forward. Looking forward, the road to Alpha 4.0. This coming year is going to be a huge one for Star Citizen, possibly its biggest one to date. Doubt. Show me, Chris. Been reading this a lot. Show me. The first order of business is to continue to stabilize Alpha 318 so we can release the live servers in January. Bold, but okay. Once the team is back from their well-earned holiday break. Then we will continue to harden PES, improving aspects and adding some additional quality of life features, including the ability to choose which PES shard you'd like to join. The current game server / PES shard matchmaking tries to match you to the last PES shard you were in when you log in or recover from a crash. But if your shard is full, it places you in a different one. But in the short term, before server meshing makes this not so necessary, we also want to give players the chance to wait in a queue for their preferred shard if it is full. Now, that's interesting. The next step will be separate replication layer, RL, to separate the replication layer, the in-memory cache that remembers all dynamic object state, from the game server, and have its scalable RL scalable RL workers that communicate the state changes between the various game clients, servers, and the RL. So the replication layer is the thing that kind of tracks everything on all services. So in theory, I think what he's saying with this one is that if you take a Pico doll and you put it on a place on Microtech, it'll be replicated on all services across all shards in the verse, which sounds problematic because then you just have Picos just manifesting out of nowhere if you happen to be in the same place. So it will be interesting to see how they get that done. This is very important for server meshing, as universe state needs to be fully decoupled from server state. It will also make Star Citizen much more crash resilient on the client side, as a server crash will no longer take down the RL as well, meaning that clients can stay connected while the new server takes over where the last one left off. It will also have the added benefit of having the view every client has of the universe around it to be a little bit more fluid with less lag, as the client's update and refresh of object state will no longer be tied to the tick rate of the game server. This means players will see state changes from other remote clients and game servers as they happen at the rates the various clients and servers push them. That's basically what I just said, I think. I may be wrong. If I am wrong, let me know in the comments below. Once this happens, you'll be able to have multiple game servers communicate with the RL, much like multiple game clients communicate with right now with RL, allowing Star Citizen to have multiple servers simulating the universe's state, which we call server meshing. We start this with static server meshing, where different servers are assigned to simulate. No. He's just saying that being able to use the RL is okay. Yeah, he's saying that just for a shard, the RL for that shard is going to be. And right now, it's tied to the server. To be able to do server meshing, they need to remove it from the server and have it be a separate instance that can talk to other servers and in the shard and be able to replicate that. That's what he's saying. Okay, that's a little different. That's basically allowing persistence to happen between the different servers for server meshing. We will start with static server meshing, where different servers are assigned to simulate different entity zones in a star system. Entity zones, sometimes referred to as local grids, are separate simulation areas. The inside of a spaceship is a different zone to the space around which the ship flies, which is why you can walk on a ship while the ship is flying at quantum or at high speeds, because they're different. They're physically different locations. So you would think of the inside of a ship is a map, and the area outside the ship is also a map, which is why for the longest time, and it still happens, when you're leaving a ship and going into space, you can have a little bit of a glitch because it's almost like your computer is trying to stream you out of one map and put you into another, which is complicated. But the actual zone is unique. We will start with static server meshing. Oh, we already did that. A planet is a different zone than a star system zone where all planets and moons exist in. And the landing zone can also be a different zone, nested inside the planet zone, nested inside the star system zone. Russian nesting dolls. Basically, what we used to call object containers, which is what object container streaming was about. At first, the servers will be bound to fixed zones, but we will quickly move to dynamic server meshing version 1, where we assign servers dynamically to entity zones, based on gameplay and simulation load. So static servers is this region of space is its own server. This other region of space is its own server. And then with dynamic, it will be like Loreville is its own server. Area 18 is its own server. So you'll be able to scale that properly rather than just having big chunks. You'll be able to have smaller chunks. Where we will assign servers dynamically to entity zones based on gameplay and simulation load. So if there's nobody in Stanton, then the whole system will be one server. But if there's 1,000 people in Stanton, you might have 30 different zones. But it's based off of the zones. It's still physical zones, but it allows you to scale up or down based off of where the zones are. This will be much more efficient to use of the servers in the cloud, as you only need servers where players are. Whereas the static server mesh, you have to have servers assigned to zones, even if no players are there. Then we have dynamic server meshing version 2. We'll take this dynamic assignment of servers one step further by subdividing entity zones with simulation islands. This is ongoing, this is organizing dynamic objects into one zone, local grid into different groups based on which objects can collide with each other, allowing these islands to be distributed between servers to again balance out simulation load. This is what we've talked about in the past when it comes to what we thought of dynamic server meshing would be, which is effectively the space around ArcCorp is a zone, is a entity, is a object container. With a server meshing version 2, you can take that version, that zone, and subdivide it even further. So you can turn it into 2 or 5 or 100, depending on what is the load for the various areas. And each of those would be their own server, their own dedicated server controlling that area. So that's this basically what he's reiterating what we've already known for a while, but breaking it down. At this point, we should be able to handle tens of thousands of players all playing the same PES universe shard, bringing Star Citizen much closer to the ultimate goal of a huge living universe densely populated with players and AI. Once we achieve static server meshing, we can open the universe of Star Citizen to other star systems, starting with Pyro. By having the authority pass from one server to another, you'll be able to transition seamlessly, without the need of log out of the game, between star systems. We are aiming to put static server meshing and Pyro into the hands of players in the fourth quarter of 2023. A large caveat with this goal is that it is complicated engineering work that involves a completely new paradigm. Requiring a host of new backend services and technology is hard to estimate and schedule accurately, as the issues and problems can come up along the way are hard to foresee, as no one has implemented this system before, and plans rarely survive contact with users, especially at scale. This has been true for PES, as it is no secret that we were hoping to have the Alpha 318 and PES released to live by the end of the year as opposed to just PTU. Delays in finalizing 318 and PES impact on the team's ability to start the next stage. Delays in finalizing 318 and PES impact on the team's ability to start the next stage, and still have the unknowns of how PES performs after months of heavy load, and people seeing exactly how much space junk they can leave around. I like this because, and I'll do this real quick. He's admitting he screwed up. No one's going to read this the way it is, but he's admitting he screwed up, which is a nice step. I appreciate this a lot, Chris. I do. Because coming in by saying, listen, we screwed up, we knew it was going to be difficult, and we just didn't anticipate this, goes a long way for people to go, okay, yeah, people made mistakes. At least you're owning up that you were overzealous about it. The next key thing is to adjust accordingly. And I think that's what he's doing with this one. So that's a good one. But I would still highly suggest not expecting 318, for those of you who are watching this, in January. Based off of a lot of other factors, including people on vacation, and they come back the first week after January, so like January 9th would be the first day back in the office. So that means they only have 3 weeks, and we know that at least 317.2 was at least a month in open PTU before it was released, and that was far less complicated than 318. So even if wave 2, because they're probably going to do a wave 2 before they get to the version, even if that releases at the end of the second week of January, we probably won't see the first full week of open PTU open until that Friday after that. So if I pull up my calendar, that would be the 20th would be my guess for open PTU. I'd love to see it sooner, and there's almost certainly not going to be an open PTU from the 20th to the 31st. That's less than 2 weeks. There's no way that's going to happen. It's almost certainly going to fall into February, if not March, because of how complex it is. So I still don't appreciate that, because I think that's still an overly ambitious goal, and it's better to fudge the numbers a little bit, do a little bit of Scottying, and give it take a little bit longer than you think, because I think that will be a little bit better. So with that in mind, I also think that they're being ambitious to say that they're going to get fourth quarter of 2023. I wouldn't expect Pyro and 4.0 to come out until March of 2024, based off of this current stuff. So yeah, setting my own expectations a little bit, so hopefully people don't get too upsetty spaghetti about next year not having what a lot of people see as the only thing that matters, which is Pyro and server meshing, because they see that as progress, even though, as he'll explain later, it's more than just Pyro that's important. But they call it the road to 4.0, no longer the road to Pyro. Beyond this, there is a host of other exciting features and content we have planned for 2023. Pyro, with its assorted planets, moons, settlements, space stations, and assorted factions and AI population, being the headline. We also will be rolling out new item resource system in ships, which replaces the old pipeline system with a much more dynamic and scalable system to allow for truly emergent behavior. In fact, elements of this new system can already be seen in 3.18 in salvage gameplay. Bounty hunting with full tracking system. So that's the resource system that's been talked about a lot. That will allow for multi-crew functionality. And they're already starting some of it out with salvage, so that makes sense. Bounty hunting with full tracking system and the ability to actively restrain and transport both players and AI. Persistent hangars with freight elevators allowing for you to call up stored inventory or other things into storage. Towards the end of the year, we should see some more Squadron 42 related work arrive in Star Citizen. More flexible player traversal, especially on ladders and ledges. A greatly improved interaction system, FPS scanning, the new star map, MFDs, using the more performant and flexible building blocks UI system, and much deeper combat AI. I think this is all supposed to be 4.0, but now that Gen 12 renderer is functioning in 3.18, the graphics team will work on multi-threading improvements and optimizations for the renderer, as well as hook up the Vulkan graphics API to it, to unlock some of the performance gains that Gen 12 renderer can provide. There are numerous more things the Star Citizen team are working on this coming year, but this letter is already long enough. Grazie. Final thoughts. Looking back on 2022, it has been gratifying to see Cloud Imperium and Star Citizen's community grow. We ended this year with 861 employees, and the community grew more than 4 million accounts and 1.8 million backers, accounts that have purchased Star Citizen. So what he's saying is that there are 1.8 million backers this year alone? Is that what he's saying? Or is that our overall? I think he's saying it's overall. There's no way we had 1.8 million this year alone. So that's the first time they've actually spelled that out, though. The number of players who've actually purchased the game, which is 1.8 million, which is still a lot. That's still a lot of people. We've achieved this a lot this year, including our moves to 2 wonderful new homes for most of our staff. We fell short on a few others, like having 3.18 and PES fully live before the end of the year, but this is the nature of game development that tries to go boldly where no game has gone before. What has especially been great is just how much more time people are spending playing Star Citizen this year. This had a lot to do with the increased player count and improved stability, but also Star Citizen, even its alpha state, is already feature and content rich, with a huge number of things to do with friends or solo, and this list grows longer every patch. The universe and how you interact with it is up to you, from exploring to hauling, trading, mining, salvage, refueling, refining, bounty hunting, piracy, and being a hired gun, or to just see sightseeing and being a social butterfly. And that's just what we have now. The future is you'll be able to farm or gather other resources, build, craft, and sell. The universe of Star Citizen is a huge sandbox for everyone to play in, and I couldn't be more excited by what the future holds. Star Citizen is more than just a game. It's an escape to another reality where players can pursue their imagination, not bound to a single playstyle or profession, where they can interact with other players that share in the common dream. I feel incredibly lucky and privileged to have the opportunity to pursue this dream with the amazingly talented team at Cloud Imperium and the support and patience of this best community in gaming, the Star Citizen community. From all of us at Cloud Imperium, we wish you all a happy new year and can't wait to journey with you in 2023. Thank you, Chris. As much as I tend to believe that Star Citizen is much more than just Chris Roberts, especially since most of the newer folks, people probably even you who are watching, may not even know that Chris Roberts is the CEO and founder of Star Citizen, who made the Wing Commander games, the Freelancer games, and the Starlancer games. But he used to do these letters more frequently, and a lot of the older backers, the more veteran backers, remember, backed because of his involvement in the project. But so it's always nice to hear from him. I was not expecting this at all. But overall, I think what we can take away from this letter is Star Citizen has grown a lot in terms of people, and CIG has noticed this and obviously is putting more emphasis on this. He also emphasized that salvage is non-combat, meaning that Chris Roberts is very concerned in trying to push the concept of non-combat professions to the forefront, which is another complaint that players have had and the community has had for a very long time, that Star Citizen's been mostly combat focused, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of industry other than, the poorly supported trading and mining. So he definitely is indicating they want to go more that direction next year, which is a good idea. A bunch of things implemented, talking about the goal of setting most of those things that we saw at CitizenCon that was specifically being built for Squad 42 being added to Star Citizen next year. We already know some of that is already being worked on. The movement system that allows you to jump from ladders and such and vault over things, that's already started its work in the pipeline to be put into Star Citizen. So that probably is going to be here sooner rather than later. The other stuff, it's harder to tell. The update for saying 4.0 end of next year, again, highly give it some buffer. Probably, we might see it, but I'd probably see it as a PTU. And I really hope I'm wrong. I do hope I'm wrong on this one, but it's better to set expectations appropriately based off of past experiences and be pleasantly surprised if they manage to surprise us. But better to be prepared for the worst than to hope for the best. So yeah, it seems a pretty good one. It's mostly just kind of a look back, but there's some of those things in there, pretty nice. But I'll leave the link in the description for you to read yourself. I want to know your thoughts on this year as a whole, good or bad, as well as the letter from the chairman, your hype, your hopium, your copium, your salt, whatever. Let it down in the conversation. Have a conversation down below. Just be kind with each other. Don't be spouting off stuff, and be unique. I've heard enough people making jokes about the scam or whatever you'll hear. That stuff just not gonna fly too well. I don't care. I'll probably just remove those comments because they're not interesting or engaging. So, but I do want to hear your thoughts. Just make them engaging, make them good. Don't be lazy. Of course, if you enjoyed this content, we do this live on Thursdays. So if you want to learn about Star Citizen, about its development, about what's going on behind the scenes, get an early look at stuff, we do breakdowns of the monthly reports. We look at the progress trackers and so on and so forth. So join us live, twitch.tv/theastropub, youtube.com/theastropublive on Thursdays for our office hour streams where we do that. This is Chat. I'm Paul. And like I always say, hope to see you someday in the black.